All right, everybody, buckle up because we are diving into some seriously interesting aftermath. Like, forget just watching the storm pass by. We're talking about what happens after the winds die down and the cleanup begins.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in this case, the aftermath of Typhoon Shantanur got people in Taiwan talking about a lot more than just, downed trees and power outages.
Exactly. I mean, obviously those things are important, but this discussion dove headfirst into economics, politics, and get this, even a bit of karaoke.
Karaoke. Now, that's a twist I wasn't expecting.
I know, right? It's wild. And all of this is stemming from an article we found in the United Daily News, which is like one of the biggest newspapers over in Taiwan.
So we're getting this right from the source.
Absolutely, straight from the horse's mouth. And the heart of the matter is that Typhoon Shantanur forced a ton of businesses to close up shop, which, is kind of a given when you've got a major storm barreling through. But where things got really interesting was around the whole typhoon days situation.
Yeah, that's where things always get a bit complicated. Because it's not just about businesses being closed for an afternoon, right? We're talking about potentially billions of dollars in losses, depending on how these typhoon days are managed.
Oh, absolutely. It's serious stuff. And the article even quotes Lin Po-feng, the chairman of the Chinese National Federation of Industries, as saying each typhoon day costs the Taiwanese economy a whopping $315 billion.
$315 billion. Okay, so we're not messing around with small change here.
Not even a little bit. That's billion with a B.
Yeah, that's a staggering number. I think it's worth taking a second to look at how he even arrived at that figure because it reveals some of the, the complexities of this issue.
I'll be honest.
So basically, he took Taiwan's annual GDP, which, for those who don't speak economist, is basically the total value of all the goods and services produced in a year, and divided it by 365 days.
So essentially, he's assuming every single day has the exact same economic output, which, let's be real, we know that's not how the world works.
Precisely. It's a simplified calculation, to put it mildly.
What's a tad?
Think about it. Some businesses can easily just shift to remote work when a storm hits, but others? Forget it. Manufacturing, construction, anything that requires people to actually, be on site, those come to a screeching halt if everyone's told to stay home.
And even then, wouldn't different industries, even within those sectors, be affected differently? Like, I imagine a bakery being shut down for a day is a bit different than, say, a massive tech company.
Oh, without a doubt. Different levels of impact, different levels of resilience. It's not as simple as saying, okay, everyone loses X amount of money and calling it a day.
Right. It's way more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And speaking of nuance, it's really interesting to compare Lin Po-feng's perspective with another leader quoted in the article, Tsai Ming-zhong. He's the chairman of Taiwan Mobile and Fubon Media.
Okay, yeah. He seemed to have a different, maybe less about the cold, hard numbers take on the whole typhoon day thing. Am I right?
Totally. While Tsai definitely acknowledges that these days off do have an economic impact, he really emphasizes just how unpredictable weather patterns can be. It's almost like he's arguing that sometimes prioritizing safety over those short-term economic gains, well, that can actually be the smartest economic decision in the long run.
Right. It's like, yeah, maybe taking a bit of a hit now prevents a bigger economic headache down the road. Kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid, maybe?
Exactly. And that whole long-term thinking thing, it becomes even more relevant when you see how different parts of Taiwan actually responded to Typhoon Shantanur. It wasn't like a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, yeah. So give us the rundown on how different places handled it, because I remember the article pointing out that not everyone was on the same page about when to call it Typhoon Day.
Right. There are definitely variations. Like Taipei, they declared 2 typhoon days.
Yeah.
Pretty standard.
Makes sense.
But Kaohsiung and Pingtung, they got hit way harder by the storm, and they ended up having 4 typhoon days, plus an extra day tacked on for recovery.
Wow. Okay, so a much bigger impact in those areas. It's like each local leader had to weigh those economic concerns against, keeping people safe. That's got to be a tough call. What do you think out there, listener? Could you imagine being in that position, having to decide when it's time to tell everyone to just stay home versus trying to keep things running?
Oh, I don't envy them, that's for sure. It's a judgment call no matter how you slice it. And this is where the article took, maybe an unexpected turn. It started highlighting what it called the unexpected beneficiaries of these typhoon days.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. I'm ready for the karaoke bars. They were packed, right?
You better believe it.
Yeah.
The article said as soon as that typhoon day was announced, KTVs were completely booked. Looks like people weren't about to let a little wind and rain stop their sing-alongs.
I love it. Hey, if you're stuck inside, might as well make the most of it, right? I'm curious, though. Is this like a common thing in Taiwan? Do people just always flock to karaoke when a typhoon hits?
It does seem to be a bit of a trend. Even Tsai, the CEO we were talking about earlier, he specifically mentioned KTVs and, get this, department stores as the winners during the typhoon.
Wait, department stores. Okay, now that's interesting. Why would they be doing more business during a typhoon?
Well, it turns out some of them were smack dab in the middle of what they call anniversary sales, which, from what I gather, are these huge events, tons of discounts, the whole 9 yards. And I guess when people suddenly find themselves with an unexpected day off, some of them use it for a little retail therapy.
Wow, it's like this unexpected economic ripple effect, right? Some businesses are forced to close, unfortunately, but then others, ones you wouldn't expect, they get a little boost. I gotta be honest, I didn't have karaoke bars and shopping sprees on my typhoon bingo card.
It's not the most intuitive connection, I'll grant you that. But it just goes to show you, these events have far-reaching consequences, and some of them you just can't predict.
Totally. And it kind of challenges that assumption that a typhoon equals economic disaster, period. Because clearly it's more nuanced than that.
100%. It reminds us to look past the surface, think about the full range of impacts, good and bad, because there's always more to the story than meets the eye,
It's like, what do they say? Every cloud has a silver lining, right? But in all seriousness, this whole typhoon thing, all the different angles we've talked about, it makes me wonder, what are our priorities when these kinds of things happen?
It's a big question, for sure. And yeah, the article focuses on Taiwan, but that whole balancing act between keeping people safe, keeping the economy humming along, even just how we choose to spend our time when the weather's doing its own thing, that's something we all deal with no matter where we live.
It's a human thing, not just a Taiwan thing. That's what makes it so interesting to think about. So for everyone listening, what about you? When you think about how your own city, your own little corner of the world handles these kinds of events, whether it's blizzards, hurricanes, whatever Mother Nature throws your way, what comes to mind?
Right. Do they seem more focused on that economic side of things, kind of like Lin Po-feng? Or do they tend to err on the side of caution, more like Tsai? And maybe even more interesting, what about you? What are your go-to moves when you see those storm warnings popping up on your phone? Are you the hunker down, stock up on supplies type? Or are you looking for the closest karaoke bar to wait it out?
I mean, hey, I'm not judging whatever gets you through the storm.
Exactly.
But honestly, this whole conversation has given me a whole new appreciation for just how complex these situations are. It's not just about the weather itself. It's about people. It's about the choices we make, both big and small. And yeah, sometimes it's even about a little karaoke along the way.
You said it. It's that fascinating dance between nature, society, economics.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to find.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we'll wrap things up for today. But hey, keep those thinking caps on, everyone, and maybe have a karaoke song or two queued up just in case. Until next time.